Alrighty. Hope everybody's having a great morning. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. And we are broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to look at Abby and Libby's case, also known as the Delphi murders. Looks like the prosecutor finally came forward after the gag order and has granted his first interview. And it doesn't look like he's messing with any YouTubers. Yeah, this one was, I think, with the Carroll County Comet, right? I'm not sure. Her name is Amy Graham. Let's get this up on the screen for you. Amy at herdmedia.com. So Nick, he's not a big fan of the whole YouTube community. He actually talks about them a few times during this interview, or us, them. I guess that would include me as well, right? Big shout out to Cindy Lean. Looks like you're busy, but when you catch the replay, if you hear this, thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate you. What's up, Rescue? Happy Tuesday, Cindy. So there's not a whole lot for today's live stream. We're going to go through this entire interview. It's pretty long. I have some supporting content that I've kind of gathered, and then also just a few notes. Then whatever else you guys have to add. It's pretty interesting. I haven't read the entire thing. I made it through about the first half and just perused the rest. What's up, Shane? Delulu, what up? Jill, how you doing? Christine. V, always good to see you. Cheeks. Hope you're having a great day at work. Hold it down. Okay, notice she titled it Cleared. I love this title. And she presses Nick about the lost tip narrative. And when we're done with all this, if you want, that's definitely a conspiracy theory that we can discuss here on this channel. Something doesn't sit right about it, and it may have nothing to do with whether or not Richard Allen is the guy or not. They may have their own motivations for conspiring and using this lost tip. And remember, it's just a conspiracy theory of mine, and I'll explain that to you probably at the end. And we'll probably just do the whole stop and go, once we hit a very important factoid or subject that they bring up, we'll kind of stop and we'll spend some time talking about it. Other than that, that's going to be it. And if you don't like the whole stop and go, I recommend going and checking out the article yourself first and then coming back as part of the replay crew. I know some folks do not prefer that. They would rather just hear it all, make up their own mind, and then come back and go through it. What's up, Susan McLeod? If you're drinking your coffee, cheers. Today we're going black. Trying to cut them calories. What's up, Julianne? How you doing? What's up, Vala? CrossFit practice? Oh. Yeah, you're getting it. She Warrior, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day at work. Patty, good morning. So we might wait another minute or two. This will kind of serve as our intro, and then we'll get going. We're about 5 minutes in. What's going on, Phil? How you doing, Jerry? How's it going? Flying Squirrel. Welcome in. Always good to see you. All right, guys, let's get going here. But if you can see, she titled it Cleared. 7 letters delayed Allen's conviction by 5 years. So you're going to see in this interview that even Nick McLeland doesn't know who wrote Cleared on that tip. So if Dan Doolin is support and he's helping the investigation by doing interviews, kind of like what the FBI does, finds this tip, he must have handed it to somebody. Whoever he handed it to, I mean, isn't it safe to say they know who wrote Cleared on the tip? What's up, Melly Mells? Appreciate it. All right, once again, this is by Amy Graham McCarty. Carroll County Prosecutor Nicholas McLeland spoke to the Carroll County Comment Friday. His first interview, Carroll County Comment. Say that 3 times fast. His first interview since the gag order was lifted in the Delphi double murder case. This is part of a continued series of firsthand perspectives from those closest to the case by journalist Amy Graham McCarty. All right, so she's going to looks like she's going to have a few more interviews. Thank you, Vala. Seven letters prolong the investigation into the person responsible for killing Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Written in red on a tip sheet with information on tip number 74. So this is within the first 100 tips, it looks like, right? Am I safe to say that tip number 74 means it's the 74th tip? Was the word cleared? That one word allowed Richard Allen's self-reported tip to be filed away until 2022. A year earlier, in 2021, Carroll County Prosecutor Nicholas McLeland says investigators circled back to review the nearly 20,000 tips received in the case. Me too, Shane. At this point, I am. Whoever he handed it to, whoever wrote that Cleared, and whoever put the last name as Whiteman, it almost seems intentional, but we'll save that for later. I don't want to get distracted here. Allen of Delphi was convicted and sentenced for the murders of Abby and Libby. He confessed more than 60 times to killing the girls. For 2 years, McLeland and later his team of deputy prosecutors Stacey Diener and James Luttrell Jr. has remained tight-lipped about the case, considering a gag order placed in December of 2022 by Special Judge Fran Gohl. With the gag order lifted December 20th, 2024, he's allowed to speak. Tip number 74. Hey, sees through. Yeah, all the tough questions, right? That's what I'm saying. He did pre-recorded interviews, and he had a list of things he would or would not talk about. After nearly a year of reviewing tips, Kathy Schenk, a retired Division of Family and Children worker and investigative team volunteer, revisited tip number 74. Allen's self-reported tip placed him on the Monon High Bridge on February 13th, 2017, the day the girls went missing. The tip had information from Allen that he saw 3 girls on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Allen told Indiana Conservation Officer Dan Doolin he was wearing clothing similar to a man recorded by Libby following the girls across the bridge and instructed them to go down the hill. That man was dubbed Bridge Guy. See, this is a lie right here. This is inaccurate. It says here, Allen told Indiana Conservation Officer Dan Doolin he was wearing clothing similar to the man recorded. That's not true. That never happened. That wasn't part of the initial tip. That came later. At this point, Doolin or Richard Allen knew about the video when he was tipping himself in. So that's already wrong. Yeah, I agree with you, Shane. What's up, Red Dog? There is no evidence that the bridge guy was the killer. Well, if you kidnap two girls, you are a killer. You know, if you help kidnap the girls and you help them die, you 100% are the killer. If you go in and do a robbery and your friend kills the clerk, you are a murderer. It wasn't misfiled. It was lost because Allen's name was entered as Richard Allen Whiteman. Okay, sounds like some more bullshit. Name was entered as Richard Allen Whiteman. So why weren't you looking for a man named Richard Allen Whiteman? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It wasn't misfiled. It was lost because Allen's name was entered as Richard Allen Whiteman in the tip database. The reason we didn't find it was because on the tip, someone wrote cleared. So we put it in the file that it was cleared. McLeland said the file was marked accordingly. There needs to be an investigation into this. First of all, the fact that they put his name as Whiteman is almost like they're trying to say, oh, that would have been an easy mistake. The effects of writing Whiteman are huge, but the consequences are minute, right? Like, oh, simple mistake. But what it caused was Richard Allen to almost go free. So this is a little bit fishy, the Whiteman, and then somebody writing cleared over the top of it. I feel like somebody's putting their thumb on the scale and either this is a fabricated story, or somebody was trying to help Richard Allen at that point. And I don't think it was Dan Doolin. So either they didn't want his phone investigated or they didn't want him investigated. In 2021, we had a meeting with all law enforcement and said, let's go back and review every tip and see if we missed something. Kathy had the wherewithal to read the tip and say, hey, this guy was on the trail that day. I've never read a tip with the name Richard Allen. This is important. Shank took the tip to now Sheriff Tony Leggett. It clicked that this is the guy that everybody saw, and there we are, McLeland said. If there is a hero in that part of the story, it's Kathy Shank and Tony Leggett. Yeah, I have problems with all that. All right, let's take a quick break and go to the chat. Cindy, I think someone marked cleared because the follow-up question was, who are the girls? I agree with that. But that person should know who it was. Whoever the first person to look into these three girls, other than Dan Doolin, is the person who wrote cleared on there. It's as clear as day. It's got to be. And yeah, Dan Doolin can play dumb because he wasn't investigating. He was just doing interviews, taking notes, and providing the information from those interviews so the investigators could investigate that information. He wasn't tracking down the leads or the information and, within that tip. He said, well, I met with one of the people who called the tip line. No red flags. This is the information he provided me. Here you go. FBI clerk takes it and enters it into the Orion system. So whoever gave it to her, or whenever it switched hands, I mean, shit, that could have been the FBI. I mean, for all we know, they might have been up to something. I don't trust those sons of bitches as far as I can throw them. What's up, War Kittens? Sees through, how you doing? Shaboogies. What I'm saying is there is no evidence that the man on the bridge committed the murders. Yeah, they have him on video saying, guys, go down the hill. He's kidnapping the girls that ended up dead. What do you mean there's no evidence? You never seen the video? Guys down the hill? V says, you kidnap two girls that are dead moments later. You definitely aren't innocent. Where the fuck does this lack of logic come from? Yeah. Don't ask me. An ejected bullet is not proof. A fired cartridge is. That's not true when it comes to tool mark evidence. Especially when you're on video telling them where to go. Yeah, if you're the guy on the bridge telling Abby and Libby, guys, down the hill, you're definitely, if not one of the murderers. What's up, Goat Dog? Goat Dog says Richard Allen lied about his name 1000%. I think he could have. People don't give these killers enough credit when it comes to misleading and manipulating and kind of steering the narrative. That's the number one reason that they come forward. Number two reason is to get information from the investigation. How do we know that Allen didn't give his last name as Whiteman? He may have. But whoever wrote cleared may have also been misleading with the name. It needs to be investigated. Why don't you think it's actually a lie to get a guy, Richard Allen? I'm not saying it's not a lie. What I'm saying is I have a theory as to why they may have lied. And it has nothing to do with Richard Allen. It has to do with timing and the possibility of Richard Allen getting rid of crucial evidence. V says ejected bullet could be a stretch, but confessing details and being there, guilty, in my opinion. With no alibi, yeah, 100%. Someone was trying to, yeah, somebody, there you go. That's what I'm thinking. Somebody may have been trying to cover for him. Like they knew him personally, or maybe somehow they were involved or knew what he was involved in, and it may lead back to them. You know? So they hide it. Or the core group always knew about Richard Allen, and they sat on that because they were trying to make connections between him and Anthony Schatz. And we could speculate about that later. What's up, buddy Rich? Lisa, how you doing? I thought they had 70,000 tips, not 20,000. No, they're saying at this point it was 20,000. Yeah, typo, welcome in. It could be harmless as well. But it makes sense as to why Dan Doolin doesn't really remember any of it. You know, he's trying to help. It's already late. You know, they're probably already exhausted. You know, he's like, okay, I got to go meet with this guy. Obviously, he's not the killer if he's calling the tip line, right? Which is the whole reason why Richard Allen called the tip line. Better I come to you than you come to me. Because the moment you raise a red flag about me, now my name's highlighted. So I'm basically ducking the highlighter, like, ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, zigging and zagging. You don't want to get on that radar. They only have audio, and there is no proof that the audio belongs to the guy on the bridge. Could have been another entity. Well, it's most likely the guy that's on the bridge, right? And it doesn't say that it's not the guy. They just said in court that they couldn't see the guy's mouth moving. which means the camera wasn't on his mouth, but it's obviously him, right? He comes up to the girls, guys down the hill. I mean, it's not rocket science. What is the relationship to the game warden that reported himself to? Not sure. Dolan printed out the license with the pic, so he had Richard Allen. That was after the fact. That was when they found the lost tip. Then he did all of that. And he saw that Richard Allen changed his height and weight and all that stuff too. Yeah, this happened after after they found the lost tip. Then he went in and figured it all out. That's a stretch, because why lie about it now? Only the person trying to cover it up would continue the lies. So why would Nick continue the lies for them? What do you mean? Yep, the Anthony shots. I agree with that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't trust the FBI. And the only reason you would invite the FBI is because you needed the resources, or you were trying to track a suspect over state lines. What's up, Christine? Video created. I always get a kick out of that. Like, in order to accept the theory that somebody created that video, imagine those steps. Count how many steps it would take in order for that to happen. And then when you come back to reality, let me know. Yep, we all have our opinions. That's your opinion. As far as I know, they haven't made that public. So we really wouldn't know how close the markings are. And it doesn't matter if you fire the gun. The way tool marks work, they're unique to the gun. So it doesn't matter if you beat it with a hammer. Whatever you need to get those markings to leave a good impression, we don't know what Allen did that day. We don't know if he slammed the gun on the ground. We don't know if it jammed. We don't know what he did with it. It wouldn't matter. Nothing's going to change those tool markings. Yeah, Cindy, 4chan. They never said Richard Allen, but they did say Richard, and everybody knew he was on the bridge and that he comes from such and such family. And in Mexico, his family was well known. Like, his father was the principal, I think, of the middle school or the elementary or something like that, or the high school. So the father who married his father adopted him. It's not his birth father. So he adopted him. Yeah, sometimes it just goes over their head. Yeah, I do. That's a good one. Maybe I'll do that. I'll add that to the sleuth crew emojis. What's up, Brown Skittle? All right, let's continue on. I'm not going to catch up on the chat. Okay, McLeland said Learning of the tip left him with a mix of emotions. It was a roller coaster, he said. No one knows who cleared Alan's tip in 2017. We don't know to this day who wrote cleared. There have been thousands of tips and tons of people working on it. The tip that was entered had cleared written in red on it, he said. It doesn't matter what his name was filed under. The point is, someone wrote cleared on the top or on the tip. I've heard a lot of podcasts where they blame Dan Doolin. Dan Doolin is a good officer. He is thorough. He is a good officer. I don't think he should focus. I don't think we should focus on blame. We should focus on Kathy having the wherewithal to bring it to law enforcement. Shank, he said, spent 8 to 15 hours a day volunteering her time because she loves the Delphi community and she wanted to help. The only thing she is missing is an S on her chest for Superman because she is a hero, he said. Roller coaster ride. Once law enforcement determined Allen was a viable suspect, McLeland said he did not get excited. I've been working on this case for 7 years in February, starting a year after Abby and Libby died, he said. It was 6 years of highs and lows. Hey, we got this person, and hey, we got this tip. You would ride the roller coaster up the hill, and it would be a huge letdown. When investigators told him Allen was a suspect, McLeland said to himself, I'm not going to ride this roller coaster again. Let's see how this develops. I was a defense attorney for 9 years before I was a prosecutor, so my initial reaction to everything is, all right, prove it, he said. I put that on investigators and law enforcement. I do that every time I get a case. I say, all right, prove it. The lost phone. When law enforcement gathered evidence from Allen's home on October 22nd, 2022, during the execution of a search warrant, something was missing. McLeland said investigators could not find the phone Allen was using in 2017. Right? Which might be the whole cause and effect and the reason why they hid the tip. On that Allen using in 2017. On that phone, there may have been potential evidence that could further connect Allen to the girl's murders. Had we gathered his phone 5 years before he was arrested, we might have gathered more information, he said. He had a collection of phones dating back to 1998, but he didn't have that phone. He said he didn't know if he had that phone or not. He said his wife may have recycled it. Like, why would he even know that, right? Because it's probably something he asked her to do, like, get rid of this. But that was a big piece of evidence that we missed an opportunity to collect. Had we followed up in 2017, we would have a plethora of information on where he was, what he was doing, all those things. The missing phone was important, McLeland believes. Allen kept in his possession phones dating back to 1998 leading up to the phone he was using in 2017. He also had phones in his possession that were used immediately following the phone he was using in 2017 and beyond. I don't know if it was big to the jury, but it was big to me, he said. I mapped out the release dates of the phones with Christopher Cecil, looking at when was phones released. We know excuse me. We know he had a phone for at least this long, so the next phone would be the next release date. There was obvious gaps around the time around the murder where he had the phone after and before, but not at the time of the murder. It would have been a coincidence, but that was odd. That's where we found ourselves. I kind of struggle. I don't understand what that means. There were obvious gaps around the time around the murder where he had the phone after and before, but not at the time of the murder. It could have been a coincidence, but that was odd. That's where we found ourselves. So to me, that fits back in with the whole Anthony shots, right? The whole Keegan Kline logging in 2 separate phones at 8 a.m. 1 hour after that, they're seeing a mysterious man walking around the private drive on the far south end. So it takes exactly about 45 minutes to drive from Peru to Delphi. So if you're working with Anthony Schatz and you're Richard Allen, maybe that's who's logging in and logging out of the Anthony Schatz account on two separate phones. Here you go, Mr. Allen, or here you go, Mr. Accomplice. The accomplice goes to Delphi. He's looking around, he's scoping it out. He's noticed by one of the witnesses who testified in court that there was a strange man. And then Richard Allen's like, I got to get to Delphi. Like, we have problems with, these girls that were catfishing. That could be part of what he's saying here. He says there were obvious gaps around the time around the murder where he had the phone after and before, but not at the time of the murder. Well, we all know that he had a phone, right? Looking at stocks, he's looking down at his phone. So I'm wondering if he actually took photos. So and keep in mind, just because they're not runes at the crime scene and we don't think it's tied into Odinism, doesn't mean it wasn't a ritualistic killing, and it doesn't mean that Richard Allen wasn't trying to leave a message. I'm not saying that he was, because I believe they were just there to conceal the girls, because that's what happened, right? The argument that, oh, nobody found the girls the night before. How is that possible? Well, the sticks. That's how. He camouflaged the girls, and that's why he did it. All right, let me go down to the very bottom. Sorry if I skip you guys. I just want to stay on topic here. Typo says, and they knew the guy was local because by the time there was a signal or alarm that Keegan said they were going to be there, someone was able to get there in time. Yeah, and also the killer would choose an area where he's familiar with, place that he's comfortable with, especially a fledgling killer. Phil Fort, how many people died that was part of the investigation as in law enforcement? Kind of crazy. Directly, I don't think anybody died. I don't even think Ferenczi would be considered part of the core investigative group. Also, no evidence of him taking photos. Yeah, just the psychology of it. No evidence of him taking photos, but you got to wonder. The crime scene was staged. It was a little bit strange. You wonder why the girls are so different. Maybe it had something to do with him, the photographs he needed to take or wanted to take or had in mind. The sticks laid on Abby were formed like a shield, sword, battle axe, warhammer. They were so positive about it being Richard Allen, then why not let the geofencing in? Well, the geofencing, they know, they have the information. It's not them not letting it in, it's Judge Goal not letting it in because they know who it belongs to. All the information in the geofencing relates to the Subaru crew. It's a group of people that worked at Subaru plus one, and they just happen to be on the trails and the bridge after 3. Has nothing to do with the crime scene. The phones never go near the crime scene. And they have the witness statements. They have everything from those witnesses. So if you add in the geofencing, all you're doing is distracting the jury and you're wasting the court's time. You only have 7 weeks to get it, to prove your point. And Goal has an obligation. And there's rules too. Everybody has their own individual rights. You can't just go dragging these innocent people through the mud unless they're connected to the crime scene. Just being on the bridge doesn't mean you get to distract the jury with some useless geofencing information. What's up, Big J? He develops photos at CVS. Yeah, he developed the funeral photos for Libby and gave them to the family on the house. I'm just gonna trust my gut. Hey, Joe, we need tinfoil hat emojis. I'm so with that shit. Yeah, maybe I should do that. Sleuth Crew keeps telling me to do that. But if you want one, go in your kitchen and wrap some tinfoil around your head. Well, let me. It's aluminum foil. I had a comment. Somebody said that to me. They stopped making tinfoil years ago, Sleuth. It's aluminium. Like, oh shit, my bad, bro. My bad, damn. What's up, Crystal? Go Dog. Do you remember 1 hour photo with Robin Williams? Yeah. Reminds me of Richard Allen for sure. I played little clips here and there during the trial from that movie. All right, doing it differently. For McLeland, looking back over the trial, he admits there are a few things he would do differently. Obviously, the tip being overlooked for 5 years is huge and unfortunate, he said. It's not huge for trying the case, but it is a huge thing for the family. We had to go an additional 5 years. That's a big deal. And we can't blame anyone because we don't know who wrote cleared on the tip sheet. The only other thing is, I would have someone testify about the pattern of life of Richard Allen while he was in jail, what he did day to day to have more impact for the confessions. Having an account of Allen's behaviors and actions leading up to and following his 60 plus confessions could have helped show the jury Allen did not make those due to being psychotic, he said. I don't know how much weight jurors put into confessions, he said. Obviously, they carried a lot of weight to us because I'm not sure why someone would confess to something they didn't do. See, that's not intellectually honest. I mean, as an attorney and a prosecutor, he should know better. He should know that people confess to shit they didn't do all the time. It happens. And he should also say that we don't allow that kind of shit around here. That's not what he said here. He chose to play the lawyer game just like the defense attorneys, right? It's all power of words and perception. You're not going to really get a whole lot of truth. I think it would have more impact if we showed his day-to-day activities and showed that when he made confessions, he was at normal behavior. I think we could have done a better job of that. Some of Allen's confessions in the form of phone calls. This is very interesting. This was very compelling. So listen up. Some of Allen's confessions in the form of phone calls to his wife, Kathy, and mother, Janice Allen, were played for the jury during trial. We played phone calls showing how he is talking about the weather, asking how mom is, how is dad doing, how are you, how's the cat, how's the dog. And then he says, Kathy, I just need you to know that I did this, he said. There are 700 to 800 phone calls. We couldn't play them all. That would be too much for the jury. The phone calls before and after, we should have played those to show this is normal. This is not under duress, and these confessions are legitimate, at least in my mind. When asked about why he believed in the same call, Allen would confess his guilt and then ask, what if I did it? And say to his wife, I think I did it. McLeland said he believed it was because Allen did not get the reaction he had hoped for. I agree with that. If I confess to killing and I've talked to my number one, which for him was Kathy, and you don't get the reaction you expect, think about it, he said. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. Ooh, that felt good. If I confess to killing and I've talked to my number one, which for him was Kathy, and you don't get the reaction you expect, think about it, he said. He cares what she thinks. I'm using common sense. Yeah, that's what this is all about, right? It's all about common sense and then the defense team gaslighting that common sense. That's all this is. Which for him was Kathy. I'm using common sense and life experience, but I think we've all been in a situation where we don't get the reaction that we wanted and we feel the awkward silence. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I don't buy into that. I buy into the most obvious answer is the right one, like Occam's razor, which is not always true, but it's definitely the first one you want to look at. I know the facts of the evidence we have and use my life experience to evaluate a situation. When I see something, I call a spade a spade. I look for the most straightforward answer. All right, we'll take a quick break there. See what you guys have to say about that part. CJK, what up? Crystal, your rhetoric is false yet oddly funny. Hey, long time no see. I like toidles. Deliberated. Deliberately. Red Dog says Alan did the same thing Jesse Miskelly did in Arkansas. Well, Jesse Miskelly confessed while he was being interviewed. Richard Allen maintained his innocence until he was in prison. So it's a lot different. But I do believe that people can be coerced into making false confessions. So I told everybody from the beginning not to put too much into that. We don't know which way the judge is going to go. We don't know the way the jury's going to look at it. And honestly, you can be a guilty man and still make false confessions, because of your circumstances. Joe says not only would they call law enforcement, but they would trust law enforcement. There is really only one Richard Allen supporter who stands by his conviction. He could have used a non-digital camera and developed the film himself at CVS. Yep. He could have used his burner phone and done the same thing. The West Memphis Three were guilty, just saying. Only one way to find out, and that's to test that DNA on the shoelaces. Why that hasn't been done, I have no clue. They draw out a hat, Cindy. Some still claim that method is unfair. The old pull a name out of a hat system. Flawless. I don't care if he was psychotic or not. He should have never known the murder weapon. I doubt anyone had guessed a box cutter. Really, it's almost like it could only be a box cutter. The cuts were only about an inch deep, and on the edge of the skin there was some rubbing that was taking place. They better test that DNA. They keep talking about it. Every month there's an article about it and how they're about to test the DNA, and Damien Eccles coming forward like we're so close. But part of the rules were that they can never test that DNA. And he knows that. Everybody knows that. So you can say whatever you want to the public, like we're innocent and all we need to prove it is to test this DNA. But all parties involved know that they will never test the DNA in the West Memphis 3 case from the shoelace. It's part of the agreement. But you'll never know the truth until it's tested. So Dan Doolin is wrong. All law enforcement are wrong. Girls' families are wrong. Ever think it might be you that's wrong? You didn't answer my question about changing the time. He was at the trails. Oh, well, of course, Dan Doolin's tip wasn't accurate. You can't trust that. Can't trust anything that goes against the narrative. That's called confirmation bias. And no matter what side I appear to be on, I make sure to be very careful. I might go down a rabbit hole, but not blindfolded. All right, let's continue on. Okay, how? The question many have asked over the last nearly 8 years since Abby and Libby went for a hike on the Monon High Bridge Trail is why and how. How is the question I have been asking the most. McLeland said, I asked them, have you ever had a gun pointed at you, and how would you react if you did? That's a unique experience that not many people have or will ever experience. We did a live stream. It was 2 hours long, and I think over 20 cases of grown men being kidnapped at gunpoint. Most people are kind, gentle people. When someone points a gun at you and says, do this, I have never had that happen to me, but I have an idea of how a 13, 14-year-old girl would react. It's fight or flight. And at that age, it's usually shock. Just go look at the Brusha case. Individuals took to social media and YouTube to discuss the merits of the case, some speaking on authority of Alan's innocence and guilt. I would sit back and say, if you only knew the whole story. Well, yeah, we still don't know the whole story, bud. I don't think you guys even know the whole story. You're just, you just won your case. It's over for you. With a lot of unanswered questions. McLeland said of comments made online about the case, I'm very much the person that I am, not going to go on TV before a game and say, I'm going to win this. Rate me as the underdog and play the game. Though social media didn't bother the prosecutor, he said he hoped people would take into consideration what their comments do to the families. I would always think, do you realize what effect this has on the family? That is the big issue for me because I know the family, he said. And honestly, there wouldn't be any drama in the true crime community if people would just leave the families the fuck alone. You wouldn't piss off people. They wouldn't be after you so much if you just didn't do stuff like that. You bother people when you do that. Most of us aren't here for the killer. We're here to advocate for the victims' families and to create a platform and to make it available on call. The drop of a hat. If it's needed, boom. We create our subscriber base and our support base specifically to lift up the platform. And honestly, there would be zero drama amongst channels, amongst YouTubers, amongst true crime enthusiasts at all, from here all the way to Reddit, Facebook, if people just left the families alone. It's just unnecessary. If you stop doing that, people wouldn't get triggered. They wouldn't get all pissed off, huffy and puffy, and feel like they need to, do something about it. So honestly, if you would just stop that part, attacking people without real proof. I mean, if you want to question them and call them on your show and ask them questions and try to develop evidence, that's fine. But accusing Kelsey and stuff like that is, that gets people really pissed off. So that's probably half your problem there, if you're having any. Carroll County is known for being a tight knit community where neighbors help neighbors. It is also not unusual for familial connections as generations continue to reside in the area. McLeland said he never let those connections cloud his judgment. If that weighed into my decision making then, I would not be able to be the prosecutor, he said. It is not just this case. In every case I know, the mom, the dad, I graduated with the sister or brother. It is such a small community. I know 70% of people I've prosecuted in one way or another. I had no effect besides it being more heartbreaking because I knew the girls before they died. I know their family knew my family. It's just a small community. I was born and raised here, and I feel very loyal to Carroll County. Let's go to Jinx. How much time did the defense claim to need, and how much time did they actually use during the trial? They wanted like 2 months, and they didn't even need all the time that Gold gave them. That one day they were just like out of the blue, well, we rest our case. Like, what the fuck? You haven't even, without an alibi? That's it? Okay, buddy. Good luck. Cheek says the problem with that, Sleuth, is there's still dipshits out there who think the family is involved in this case, like people harassing Kelsey all the time. It's fucking disgusting. Yeah, that's the hard part. That's really what gets under people's skin because you wonder how somebody can do that. I think it's okay to say, during the beginning parts of an investigation, that they're going to thoroughly look at the family. Then you have to ask, well, why do they thoroughly look at the family? Well, in certain circumstances, they are 90% responsible for those types of crimes. But usually those crimes involved somebody that went missing from the home. It's completely different. So I think it's okay to talk about statistics and things like that and actual factual information and to say why certain things are curious. But honestly, if you think that a family member is involved, that means that you have some really powerful information, right? To come out publicly and say that. So my advice to you is provide that information to law enforcement, not the YouTube community. Because if you have the evidence for you to be saying such things, it should be turned over to law enforcement first anyway. Because that's huge, right? You having proof that somebody's involved in a murder and it's not just some reckless accusation, right? But that's what McLeland's talking about. Codependent, sex addict, alcoholic with mental issues that confess to stalking and murdering 2 kids. We can all agree on that, right? Yeah. With no alibi. Don't forget that. Why would anyone want to risk hurting somebody more who's already been through the absolute deepest pain someone can go through? I don't know. It's some very dark, I call it the dark hearted. Only somebody with a dark heart would do something like that. Somebody like an egotistical maniac, maniacal maybe, and they just live through that dark lens. Like, I don't need proof. I've convinced myself, me and my ego, we're on a runaway train and this is what we believe. I don't care if I hurt them, I'm going to become radicalized about it. I'm going to start harassing their family. Anybody that doesn't listen to me, I'm going to attack you. They've allowed themselves to be convinced. And the only way that they can continue on that path is by gaslighting and bringing other people into their cult. It validates what they're saying. They've already gone so far above and beyond, fucked up their reputation and exposed themselves as a strange person. So they need that validation. They put it all out on the line. There's no going back. They double down. I agree, CJ. What's up, Crystal Lynn? Peace out. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, we're all entitled to our opinions. Hurting the family after they are going through hell is beyond disgusting. It is. Welcome in, Mary C. People who re-victimize victims are truly disgustingly vile. I'd be the first to say if I thought Alan was innocent, I never said Chadwell did it, Ron Logan, etc. Keegan was a possibility, all right, but I really believe it's him. What's up, Frank Meister? Good morning. I swear, we're going to get through this interview. Yeah, remember Richard Allen talked about being molested as a child. Wonder who was responsible for that. Cheek says, with these idiots, it's because Kelsey misremembers something or tells the story a different way. God forbid a 16-year-old whose sister was just murdered doesn't remember everything exactly the same. Oh, yeah, and she was not ready for what social media was about to do to her. They grabbed her by the hair and dragged her through the mud without hesitation. And then you get a group of people that say, this is not real justice for Abby and Libby. Oh, man, crazy. If you don't agree with me, it's not real justice. Yeah, Joe, there's some connection there. And I just don't feel like the investigation is going to look into it. They won't try to provide any answers about the lost tip. They're not going to pursue any connections between Richard Allen and Anthony Schatz. So if you guys are curious about those things, it's up to you. It's what we were doing before. If you want to continue on, I'm sure some of my spare time I'll be looking into that connection. Jace, what up? He obviously wanted to plead guilty, but his wife was relentless in denial. Yeah, towards the end of the interview, they actually talk about the plea deal. So, I was hoping that they would offer him a good deal, and I was hoping that Richard Allen, I underestimated him for sure. But now knowing what type of personality disorder he has and how he's connected to his wife and him being alone in prison, the only tether that he has with his wife is his denial. When he loses his denial, she can no longer live in denial. So the moment he says, all right, guys, I did it. This is what happened. She's getting a divorce. She's cutting all ties. She's making public statements. And she can finally get on with her life. But if he continues on with the charade and he has a group of lawyers who are helping gaslight them and kind of sheepdog them in a certain direction, yeah, he's going to maintain his character. This innocent guy, especially with all the support online too. Moment he tells the truth, that all goes away. He's not going to give that up. And that's information that we didn't know about Richard Allen, right? We learned that from the doctors. So how are we supposed to know? If we would have known that before, I wouldn't have been talking about a plea deal. Yeah. Now, with that information, now it's easy to see he'll never confess. Especially, before the appeal process is all said and done. What's up, bad actors? All right, let's continue on. The Allens. McLeland said, like many in the community, his interactions with Allen and his wife Kathy were minimal before he became a suspect in the murders of Abby and Libby. And this is in quotes. Nothing besides going to CVS and Richard checking me out at the register, he said of their interactions. Back when he was there, they did not have self checkouts. Richard and Kathy Allen were pretty low key members of the community. They weren't doing anything to bring attention to themselves. So that could explain why nobody came forward. You know, Richard Allen, anybody in his direct circle of friends probably already knew that he came forward and that he was cleared and that his wife could verify that and back that up. Like, yeah, he was interviewed by law enforcement. He told them, what he saw. People might even joke, like, wow, man, like you're obviously the guy on the bridge. Well, and he may have somehow convinced them that it was part of their strategy. Like, yeah, that's me on the bridge, but I came and I talked to them. This is some kind of strategy. I don't know what they're up to. So he may have been gaslighting just that small group of friends that may have only been 5 people that would have ever told law enforcement that they believed Richard Allen was that person. And we've seen some of those people come forward online, Facebook, and say, hey, that guy's been cleared. In hindsight, he was cleared. Somebody wrote cleared on his tip. So the fact that they used the same word that he was cleared, maybe this gentleman knows the officer that wrote that. Just a thought. Richard and Kathy Allen were pretty low-key members of the community. They weren't doing anything to bring attention to themselves. Steve Mullen. Investigator Steve Mullen joined McLeland at the prosecutor's office and assisted with the case. He is more than an employee. He is also a friend. McLeland says he is hurt by the defense's accusation that Mullen is corrupt. Steve Mullen is a devout Christian. When the defense said he lied, that affected him in a personal way, he said. To call him a liar, if you know him, is just inappropriate. To say he lied, cheated, would steal, or is corrupt is inappropriate. He is one of the most honest guys I know. There is no other guy more devout than he is. And to call him corrupt, that cuts him to the core because he is not that person. Threats. Threats against one's character are uncalled for, McLeland said. But those are not the only threats his office has received. The threats are always indirect, he said. There is a guy in California. Isn't there some crazy dude in California who covers the Delphi case who was like attacking Anna? Can't remember their name. And like spreading crime scene photos and shit like that. I wonder if that's the same guy. I think he's from California. There's a guy in California who messages and says, looks like I have to come slash your tires. I get innocuous threats. You get people that say, what if this happens to your 2 little girls? What if I came to Indiana to do this to your girls? It's a threat. It's not direct, but it's still a threat. It's a roundabout way. Most of the threats and negative comments, he said, are coming from individuals outside of Carroll County community. And I guarantee you a lot of these people who are making these threats to Nick McLeland are part of the Richard Allen cult. They become radicalized. They're no longer seeing things for what it really is. Yeah, the older I get, the smaller my group of friends becomes, Because honestly, the more friends you have, sometimes that equals more problems. You learn you just can't trust everybody and only a few people you really can trust. Exactly, Sleuth. Then imagine when the younger sketch came, I bet his friends took a sigh of relief. Yep. The way it all played out almost seems like it was designed to make Richard Allen feel at ease. Yeah, Cindy, it's a pretty big place. I mean, even small towns, not everybody knows each other. You know what I mean? It depends. Joe says, I live in a generational small town where everyone knows everyone allegedly. I could rob a bank, come home, and tell a local cop wasn't me, and he wouldn't believe it. And he would believe it. What up, Les? So people called in tips on Alan. I don't know if anybody called in a tip on Alan. That's what I heard. I heard there were some tips called in on Alan right before he was arrested, actually. All right. This next part is titled, Hey, Google. If there was any evidence McLeland says he was surprised by during the 17-day trial, it was when the defense's digital expert, Stacey Eldridge, a former FBI forensic examiner and certified mobile device examiner, testified that something was inserted into Libby's cell phone headphone jack at approximately 5:45 p.m. February 13, 2017, and removed at 10:32 p.m. The same evening. Sleuth, do you know how long till appeal process begins hearings? I don't know. I heard it's going to take like up to 2 years, and then it may not even be approved. Yeah, that was just talk on some online gibberish. So I don't know if it was ever verified. Cheeks, you're right. There you go. 2 to 3 years. Yeah, it takes a while. Is the one that said camcorder marks at the crime scene also? I'm not sure. I could never verify that statement, V. I did my best to track that down. But if there were any camcorder marks or tripod marks, I'm going to assume it's from those cameramen who are fleeing the scene. I believe that they were on scene before law enforcement. I believe once the girls were found, these photographers got a good look at the crime scene. They took photos of it, maybe even may have sold the photos. So we may have 3 leaks: the leaks from the defense team, the leak from these 2 individuals that were at the crime scene really before the investigation made it there, and then also potentially the killer who is releasing crime scene photos, maybe even on the dark web. What's up, Lisa? Well, you just got yourself booted. I guess we didn't make ourselves clear, guys. Yeah, sorry, you're out of here, Lisa. We don't got any patience for that shit. Hey, Google. Let's see here. So, something was plugged into the headphone jack at approximately 5:45 p.m. February 13th, 2017, and removed at 10:32 p.m. the same evening. So, right around the time that the water damage would have started and possibly dried out somewhat, 5:45 to almost 5 hours. Did the state expect that testimony? No, McLeland said. The defense did a good job of hiding what they were going to use in court, which is also unethical. When I heard it, I thought, that doesn't make sense. We saw it in the log, but again, I didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. We gave those logs to the defense, so we knew it was there. I did not know their expert was going to give that explanation, so that caught me by surprise, yeah. The state's digital expert, ISP First Sergeant Christopher Cecil, examined Libby's phone and extracted data from it on multiple occasions. Christopher Cecil, what an amazing ISP officer. The intelligence in that guy and the knowledge of digital forensics, he knows his stuff, McLeland said. He spent hours and hours and hours together. I believe the defense thought that this was the reasonable doubt they needed. Whether the jury agreed or not, they didn't buy into it. I mean, who would? McLeland said, with everything the state knew, common sense told them it was not possible someone physically plugged in a set of headphones in the port on Libby's phone and removed it at the time the defense indicated. As Eldridge remained on the stand, Cecil got to work trying to figure out a logical explanation as to what could have happened. He searched Google and was directed to an Apple Tech help site, and we have all that. We did our own investigation and we found the same stuff. It is common sense. And plus, most people have had their own experience, so they're like, yeah, that's happened to me. Libby's phone was an Apple iPhone 6S. It's not the ideal situation, McLeland said of the Google search. I think Jennifer Auger did a good job of saying this is not ideal police work. You don't just do a Google search. But when you are put in that situation and the defense does trial by surprise, that's what you get. Noting the oddity of the search and its timing, McLeland said he still stands by the information. As reliable as Google searches go, I think it was reliable. And again, that he found was common sense. So regardless if it was reliable or not, it's common sense. Jennifer Auger did a good job in saying you don't use Google for a trial. You're right, we don't. But when you spring this on us and don't tell us ahead of time, this is what you get. To me, it's just a common sense explanation. The defense objected to Cecil citing his finding from Google in court, calling it hearsay. Goal overruled the objection. So imagine being so proud of your defense and then it being shut down by a quick Google search. I've spent hours and hours upon hours, and this is the explanation that I've come up with. And the defense team goes, well, let's do a quick Google search. So imagine putting forth all that effort just to get shut down by a Google search. That's how most of this information has been going. That's how the whole Frank's memo is. You can pretty much dispute any of it with like very little effort if you want to. I don't think it is hearsay because it is him commenting on the research that he has found. McLeland said, some of Cecil's testimony is based on research that he had, like the distance of the flight of stairs. He did research. It's no different than that. Auger, McLeland noted, asked Cecil about the distance of a flight of stairs as recorded in Apple Health data. Libby's Apple Health data showed she traveled 2 flights of stairs between Allen telling the girls to go down the hill and when they were murdered. The Apple Health, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Seems to be the equivalent of 2 flights of stairs. All right, we'll take a quick break there. We still have the Apple Health data, sealing records, Frank's memorandum, a letter, lost audio, enough to convict, the van, plea deal, leaked photos. So we got to get through this. Welcome in, Fight for Justice. Good to see you. Yeah, exactly, Mary. And the thing is, most people have had that happen before where you look at your phone and it says you can't hear anything. You're like, why can't I hear anything? Like, I think my speakers are broken. But really, if you look closely, the headphone icon is on. Your phone is under the impression that you have headphones plugged in. So therefore, it's rerouting the audio from your external speakers to your headphones. And apparently that can happen from water damage. Well, hello, what just happened? These girls were forced through a creek. There's clothing all over the creek. They were wet when they were found. Hello? It's not rocket science. Alrighty. The Apple Health data extracted from Libby's phone was very significant, he said. Whether right or wrong, I bought into the Apple Health data and what it said. When you put it into context of all of the evidence we had, the Apple Health data coincides with all the data we had, he said. The fact the phone didn't move after 2:32 p.m. was big. As to why Allen would leave critical evidence behind is anyone's guess. So he wasn't sure why Richard Allen left that phone. Well, it's kind of like a mob scene, right? You have the killer, he shoots his target and leaves the gun because he knows that he didn't leave any fingerprints on it. But if he took the gun and was captured with it, now he's tied to the crime. So I don't see why he would have any motivation to take a cell phone from the crime scene. What he believes is that Abby purposely hid the phone from her killer. It was not until crime scene investigators moved Abby's body to process the scene that they found Libby's phone under a shoe under Abby's body. Okay, so that makes the girls each heroes. It was a group effort to secure that evidence that ultimately led to his conviction, right? Without that video, there's no reference for, hey, the guy I saw was the guy on the bridge. There's no reference. We can't get past the horrible descriptions from witnesses. We know there are no good descriptions unless like the guy is like keeping you hostage and you've been sitting with him for hours, right? Then you can give a good description like, yeah, this is exactly what it looks like. But when you just pass by somebody, nobody is supposed to give a good recollection. So it's great that they can look at that video and say, yeah, that's him. Like, yeah, but up close, I thought he looked younger. I remember him being a young guy, curly hair. But yeah, that's what I saw. That guy right there in that video. But for Abby, holy cow, the phone was a huge piece of evidence, he said. She is a hero in her own right. There you go. Without Libby's phone, the investigation could have taken much longer, McLeland believes. To me, the video, the location of where it was taken, and the health app data are big pieces of evidence. So, for those of you who say that the video was faked, this data right here proves that it wasn't faked. It goes exactly with it, right to the point where it says guys down the hill. The phone goes down the hill. It records going down 2 flights of stairs. It just matches perfectly. To me, the video, the location where it was taken, and the health app data are big pieces of evidence, he said. The video was powerful. If you think about the past 8 years, what is the one thing you've seen in the media these past 8 years? Evidence from that phone. It was huge to me. Sealing records. Except for the video recorded by Libby on High Bridge on February 13th, 2017, McLeland asked Gold to seal court records in the case. His reasoning, Richard Allen's best interest. I wanted a fair trial for Richard Allen. I felt like everything was out to the public. He would taint the jury pool. That is why I was very tight-lipped about talking to anyone, he said. I believe in our system. Whether you like it or not, I believe in it. I did it so we could have a fair jury. I did it to protect him. No one is going to believe that, but that is why I did it. Makes sense to me. Because if you can't get a fair trial, that's going to give him problems. And then it's going to have a higher risk of appeal. Frank's memorandum. Keeping information from the public only lasted so long. The defense would file their first of several Frank's memorandums in the case in September 2023. The court document, 136 pages in length, provided details on the crime scene, including evidence that had never been revealed to the public, a cartridge found between the bodies of the girls that had been discharged from a Sig Sauer gun, and the defense's belief members of a Norse pagan religion murdered the girls as part of a ritualistic killing. I appreciate his perspective, but I don't agree with it, McLeland said of defense attorney Andrew Baldwin, telling media recently that legally they could not file the Frank's memorandum confidentially. It just goes back to common sense, McLeland said. We investigated every lead. There is not a lead we did not investigate, we used to say. If the lead has legs, we are going to go with it. That means going down the rabbit hole until we prove or disprove it. I really think Odinism is a testament to investigators. When you first hear about it, it sounds ridiculous, and investigators said, no, we are going to go down the road and investigate. They stayed with it until they disproved it. At the end of the day, I am glad to charge whoever is responsible for this, but you got to prove it. The defense could not prove it from our evidence, and we couldn't prove it from our evidence. To me, that is the end of the story. CJK. I keep hearing about things like that happening. Mary C. Don't worry about the bullet. The jury wasn't. To know why I do think it's for safety. Mary C says, that's happening to my son's phone. It said it was in headphone mode, but it still had sound. Put it in a bag of rice and it stopped. Exactly. It's because he had water in it. Or he had water that had triggered something. Yeah, they were protecting that phone, Cheeks, 100%. Hey, Big Fish, what's up? Did it show water damage? Is that what they said? I don't know. I mean, it's almost safe to say there's water damage, right? I'm assuming they went through the creek water. I guess you could expect them to fall at some point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're taking tips seriously now. All right, a letter. One of the investigators who looked into ritualistic killings was former Rushville Police Chief Todd Click, along with now deceased FBI Task Force Officer Greg Ferenczi, a former ISP investigator Kevin Murphy, and ISP investigator Kevin Murphy. Click, wanting to be sure McLeland and investigators had thoroughly investigated the Odinist angle, sent him a certified letter after Allen's arrest. If you read over it, it piques your interest. He said of the letter, I brought Todd Click in to talk and said, tell us what you know. There is this theme out there from defense-friendly people that I am corrupt and covering up for people. I would not cover for anyone who committed this crime. So he's talking about the weird Freemasonry theories and conspiracies about him and Brad Holder working together. We called Click up and asked him to explain his thoughts. I said, let's talk about it. Give me your best pitch, if you will. We investigated it like we did everything. If I went to trial based on what I think happened, I would not win. You have to have evidence to support what you think happened. And we did not have evidence to support that theory. Is it a conspiracy theory that they all came together and committed these crimes and no one is talking? Or is it that Richard Allen was on the bridge that day and decided to kidnap and kill those girls? What makes more sense? It really depends on who you're asking, right? Well, that's what you would want us to think, right, Nick? You know what I mean? Like it never ends for some people. This is all still part of the conspiracy. You know, this is just the final little pieces of leaves and grass that they're putting over, the grave site. Hopefully nobody digs it up. The defense stated during hearings that missing audio of interviews completed by law enforcement of third-party suspects with alleged ties to Norse pagan religion was reckless, if not intentional, by the state. That audio is said to have been recorded over unbeknownst to investigators. Those interviews are documented in the reports, McLeland said. I don't fault the defense for making that an issue. It is regrettable that it happened. It was. And to me, that's what the defense's job is, right? That's what they should have been focusing on. And I think they put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to trying to find a technicality. That's what they were good at. Their whole team had a history of getting people off. Not all of them, forever, because some of them, they were killers and eventually they're going to find new evidence and things like that. but they have gotten a lot of people off on technicalities. And if there was one, I think they would have found it. Whether the defense wants to believe the reports, I understand you want to hear the actual words. To me, it wasn't an issue. I understand why the defense wants to make it an issue. I was a defense attorney for a long time. I would have done the same thing. There was nothing of merit to warrant further investigation into other individuals. Remember, it can't be easy defending a guilty man, right? Enough to convict. McLeland says he believed from the day he filed the probable cause and arrest warrant in the case that he had enough to convict Allen for killing Abby and Libby. The evidence he considered key was the cartridge found at the crime scene between the girls' bodies. The cartridge was determined to have come from a Sig Sauer P226 handgun recovered from Allen's home when police executed a search warrant in October of 2022. For me, the aha moment for the state was when we got the ballistic report and the bullet matched the gun. I believe in that science. I just believe in it, he said. I didn't have my team together at that time, but I believe the evidence we had was enough for an arrest and probable cause and enough for a conviction, or I would not have filed. You never know what jurors are going to do. I don't care if you've been practicing for 2 years or 50. If you could read a jury and know what they are going to do, that would be a skill we would all like to have. For McLeland, defense attorney Brad Rosie may not have been reading the jury when giving his closing arguments. There's a point where in a defense's closing, they showed a rack used for medieval torture, he said. Sometimes you go too far and you lose the jury. I could have objected. It was absolutely inappropriate for them to show that. I let it go. He's like, psh, hey, why help your enemy when they're destroying themselves, right? Psh, I'm not going to say nothing. That's how I feel about a lot of these trolls out here. Anybody that acts that way online or in general is bound to destroy themselves. So all you got to do is sit back and eat some popcorn and watch it happen. It'll happen eventually. Part of trial work is reading the room and seeing how people react. And we heard the jury say that recently, right? They laughed at Rosie. You have to watch the jury and how they are reacting. They are your audience. He was losing them. So I didn't object. I thought, let them go this far. He's going to lose the jury. The van. During the trial, McLeland said Allen confessed to a key piece of evidence that only the killer would know. That information, he said, came in one of Allen's confessions to his Indiana Department of Corrections psychologist, Dr. Monica Walla. Allen told Walla he was spooked while he held the girls below the bridge. Allen said he had intended to sexually assault the girls but saw a van. He then chose to take them across Deer Creek and kill them. All right, we'll pause there. Bad Actor says it could be as simple as having the phone in the bathroom while you shower. Yep, there you go. Get all foggy. All it takes is to get enough water in there to make a connection between two points. What's up, Ariel? When a person commits a crime, it's called breaking the law, but when law enforcement breaks the law, it's called a technicality. Got it. That's not what I said. Go ahead and twist my words if you want to. I wasn't even talking about that. I was simply talking about a technicality is like not filing the right paperwork, or I think the most recent example is a judge didn't give the accused, didn't go over his rights at the beginning of a trial or something like that. So the guy was let off. He wasn't let off, but they needed a new trial. Like that was a mistrial. He went back to jail and they're going to start a new trial. So he was off on a technicality. So I don't know why you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. You're not even making any sense. CJK, it's unintentional erasing the recordings by error. Can't call that law breaking. Yeah, I don't think they broke any laws doing that. That would be a technicality, right? We fucked up. Typo, medieval torture act. Wow. Yeah, that was what they were leaning on. Like, we're not going to focus on Richard Allen's alibi. We're going to go ahead and show you how he was tortured because we know that you guys are all into the confessions. So we're going to focus on that. But it had the reverse effect. Instead of making him look tortured, it just showed how crazy he was. They were like, yep, we're definitely looking at a killer here. This dude's fucking weird. Jinx, wait a minute. If law enforcement gets away with breaking the law, someone needs to tell Nate Lamar that. I think condensation alone has messed up a phone of mine. Oh, yeah. A lot of mine. Big Fish Sleuth, thanks for putting up with my contrarian ways. Oh, you already know. It's more than welcome. Just be prepared for the Sleuth spin or his take, my take on things. He doesn't say white van, McLeland said. He says a van. People associated a white van because they see the photo of Brad Weber's van. The Carroll County resident Brad Weber lives at the end of the driveway that travels under the Monon High Bridge. He testified he was driving a white van home and under the bridge around 2:30 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. It has been shared on social media that the information regarding Weber's white van was on the internet, making it easy for Walla to feed the information to Allen during one of their sessions. Was it out on social media? Honestly, guys, it really wasn't. There was talk about a white van, but the van that was being referred to was on CCTV footage from Packers, and it wasn't an Econoline van like the van that Weber owns. So even though there was some discussion in photos, there was never any discussion of a van driving on the private drive. The only discussion that we had during my own investigation is that I knew that Weber was on that private drive, and sometime he came home around that time. I didn't know what he was driving or what vehicle he was in, and you would need to be very heavily invested in this case to stumble across that information. It wasn't readily available, if at all. Okay, McLeland said information about the van was learned when the state acquired access to Allen's mental health and medical records from IDOC. The judge denied the state's request for mental health and medical records twice, saying it was privileged information, he said. Defense brought it up in pleadings, and the judge finally granted it. Walla testified in court that she had followed Allen's case before and after he became her patient. The defense used that information to attack her credibility. I don't know if the jury believed she was reliable or not, McLeland said. We thought she was. That was why we put her on the stand. If you go with the defense's theory, she made all this up. What does common sense tell you? You go where the evidence leads you. Remember, that's all this is. It's somebody giving you common sense and then the defense stepping in and gaslighting you about it. Here's the plea deal. McLeland said he offered Allen a plea deal early on, but Allen declined. There was a plea deal, he said. It wasn't a lucrative deal. I guarantee it was better than 130 years. It wasn't a lucrative deal for Richard Allen. What are you going to offer a guy who kills two girls? So that answers a lot of questions that we had during the trial. Excuse me. Yeah, that's interesting, right? The only thing I ever saw about a van was that silly stuff about people seeing a van under the bridge and a photo taken that day by Cheyenne. Oh yeah, not even under the bridge. It was on the opposite side of the creek. It was on the north side where you would enter the bridge. Man, I remember that. Shit, might be time to go look back at that, right? I told you there was a van down there. Oh, that was old. That's some old stuff, Mary. That was stuff that they had at the beginning of all of this. Man, that's old school. Typo says she genuinely cared about Richard Allen. Yeah, that's what she did. And the defense was like, yeah, I don't care. We can use this. So, we're not helping you. We're going against you. This shows she didn't run until to try to get him in trouble. They had to pull records. Yeah. And what sucks is she should get in trouble. That might be why she got fired. If you have somebody admitting to murder, that's no longer privileged. Like you have to come out and provide that information. So if you're in a therapy session, you said, I killed 7 people. Your therapist can't go, oh, okay, that's interesting. They have to report that shit by law. What's up, Stephanie? Yeah, he loves that shit. Little pudding pop. What's up, Brad? Have been listening and driving about on site again. Have fun. Be safe. Yeah, you be safe too, buddy. All right, let's talk about. He's talking about the leaked photos. When asked if he felt the defense intentionally leaked photos of the crime scene, McLeland said he would respect Gold's ruling. We presented the evidence that we had at the contempt hearing, and the judge found it was intentional. And I respect the judge's decision, he said. When he initially saw photos from the crime scene, he says, he became emotional. I got choked up. What if it was your kids? That is what I want to say. To those who have shared and posted the crime scene photos, put yourself in the position of the family and imagine seeing your daughter in that state. Just imagine it, he said. I visualize my own 2 girls, and I mean, talk about victimizing the victims. I think Becky Patty said it the best. It's generational. Every time someone Googles it, think of Becky Patty, Derek German, Anna Williams, Carrie Timmons. For them to have to see that in the public, I see it projected. McLeland said the Patty family was delivering food to those standing in line trying to get a seat in the courtroom during the trial. For them to have that strength to endure the trial and then people to go that day and badmouth them, they are what we should try to be like, he said. The defense wants to talk about being human. Those are humans. I don't know that I could do that. I think it would be bitter and mean. But again, members of our community, this community, holy cow, they are something else. 4 counts. Due to double jeopardy, Allen could not be sentenced for the 4 counts of murder he was convicted. 2 counts of felony murder and 2 counts of intentional murder. I added intentional murder in January of 2023, McLeland said. The felony murder I originally charged him with because I believe he kidnapped the girls and they died. I had the other 2 counts added because I was at a point where that was appropriate to add because I felt he intentionally killed the girls. You never know what a jury is going to do. You present the evidence you have. I thought we had a strong case. I thought we had the right person that committed the offense. He was presumed innocent until the jury came back. To Richard Allen, McLeland said he has nothing to say to Allen. I don't want to sit down with him, he said. I presented the evidence we had in court. The jury found him guilty. If you believe in the system as I do, what else do I need to hear? What answer could he give to give solace? No answer he could give me would justify or make it okay. I was pretty adamant at the press conference. I don't want to say Richard Allen's name again. He's the defendant, the convicted. This should be about Abby and Libby and how amazing they were. All right, before we finish up, let's catch up on the chat. They said it was a prop ambulance. Yeah, I remember that, Mary. I'm gonna have to go back and find some of those discussions. Yeah, they were saying it was like an Astro van or some shit. Yeah, they did, CJ. What's up, Brightfield? Good to see you, my friend. The good old meth theory. What's your evidence? Oh, I have a Facebook post about something that's not very clear. Yikes. Yikes. Yep, exactly, CJ. Yeah, pareidolia. It's a fun word. Even if there was a van talked about early on, he still would have seen it if he was there. Yeah, that whole Rich Walla, Dr. Walla, told him about the van. Come on, man. Come on, man. My best that's my best Biden impression. Come on, man. Wow. Awesome. All right. To the families, McLeland said he admires the families' faith and perseverance over the last 7.5 years. I applaud their strength and their compassion, he said. We should strive to be more like them. We really should. What they went through, and not to be bitter, they are compassionate in the face of evil. Imagine what the family was feeling. I championed them for being there every day, supporting us, and obviously being as cordial and respectful as they were. I'm not sure how I would feel if it were my kid. It takes a village. For years, McLeland worked side by side with investigators, attorneys, and the families fighting for justice for Abby and Libby. I just want everyone to know I did not do this alone, he said. It takes a village. This took a village. Jerry Holman, my staff, Stacy Diener, Jim Luttrell, Tony Leggett. I could not have done this without their help and support. They deserve and have earned as much praise and gratitude as I am getting. I could not have done this without them. All the investigators, too. And Kathy Shank. Talk about an unsung hero. Say, I love you. In his years of working as a defense attorney, McLeland says he has represented some of the worst defendants you can imagine. It never affected me. And then I had kids, he said. You watch them take their first steps, say their first words. There is something about them that I can't explain in words. It made me more emotional. Being a dad of girls makes you kind of a wimp. I agree with that. I'm right there with you, buddy. The biggest effect Abby and Libby's case had on me is every time I see my kids and loved ones, I think I better tell them I love them. When you look at your loved ones, never miss an opportunity to tell them, I love you. All right, guys, we're going to go through a few more comments, but we're pretty much out of time. We might have to reschedule the Sebastian Rogers live stream for later. I got some things I got to take care of. I got text messages coming in, and so we'll see what happens. Yeah, she should. There you go. That Southern hospitality. Yeah, we had some idiot put the crime scene photos on his on his YouTube community page. Like, what the fuck? Hey, Mustang. Yeah, they know, especially Kelsey. Yeah, that was a pretty good interview. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to do it. I wanted to go over that with you guys before it broke out, that he made the interview. That way we can talk about it first. And we do have a live stream scheduled for, I don't know, in about an hour. But I may have to reschedule that for a little bit later. I'll let you guys know. Keep an eye on the notification. Also, thank you, Vala and Cindy, for sponsoring today's live stream. My mods, thanks for helping keep the chat chill. And all of my donors and members, you guys make this possible. you continue to make it make sense. So thank you, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Replay crew, you know what to do. Leave a comment. We'll get back to you. Catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.